welcome to LaunchLeft podcast. I'm Rain Phoenix. Today's very special guest is Kathleen Hanna, and she'll be launching Naz Riahi. Don't forget, rate and subscribe. Follow us on all socials at LaunchLeft. And now, welcome to the podcast, Kathleen Hanna.
Hi.
Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, Rain. So nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Adam says hi. He said he hasn't seen you in like a million years.
A million years. I know. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for joining and speaking with us on LaunchLeft today. Your book, Rebel Girl. Can I just tell you that my boyfriend and I read it aloud to him every night for a week straight till we finished it. We were completely gripped.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
It was better than any streaming show we had been watching prior. We were like, no, let's skip watching TV. Let's keep reading Kathleen's book. And it's really interesting because obviously I'm a fan of your music. I'm a huge fan of La Tigra. I used to dance to that first record alone in my house. I just love it. And just you as a person and everything that you've stood for has been such a beacon of light and strong female energy for me throughout the years. And I'm not going to necessarily unpack your book. Obviously, there are so many incredible things in it. Your friendship with Kurt, the love affair with Adam, like that whole section, reading about that was super powerful too, just to hear how deep that connection was and how long, you guys are still in this love fest, and it's so beautiful.
I mean, sometimes we can't stand each other, but you know what I mean, like any relationship, but
right.
He definitely is a very funny person and easy to be around. And yeah, he made a joke when he needed to go get me tampons, and he was like, oh, yeah. Did you hear about the Cinnabon Tampax collab? Do you want me to get you some of those? I was like, don't give me Cinnabon flavor. Because one time he bought me like deodorant tampons, and I was like,
that's a no-no.
I was like, how long have you known me?
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't know. So now he's always joking like, oh, I'll get you Lowry's flavor. A tahini flavor.
Anyway, I'm going to ask you questions that are burning for me.
Well, I had no idea you would even know who I was. So,
oh my gosh, yes, absolutely.
Alec Zadig.
Oh my gosh, you know Alec Zadig. I didn't have any idea you would know that.
I'm saying I've been saying it wrong. Oh my God, I've been saying. Wait, you say it, because if I've been saying it wrong, this whole like
no, you had it right. It's Alec Zadig. I think a lot of people say Alikas, but it's like Alakazam. It's like a magic spell, Alakazam. Yeah, I love that you know that. That's some old school 90s.
It's like I mean, it's like we were on some of the same on the telephone poles. Like we were next to each other on all the telephone poles. So I was like, who is that? Who is that? Who is that? And then finally, it was like, I think Adam was like, oh, I knew River Phoenix and his sister had a band, and I was like, oh, she's in that band. Yeah. So I was like, I can't even believe the fact that you have known my music or dancing to La Tigra at your house by yourself. Biggest compliment. Highest compliment. You know what I mean? Like as a musician, bigger than any award, the picture of someone dancing by themselves, like to something you made is like, you're a musician. It's like, that's huge.
Yeah, I know. I was sad I missed those shows. I'm hoping you guys kick it up again, and I'll come out to one of those shows.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, that's so cool, because I was going to say, I'm from the 90s too.
Me and Adam always joke of like, we're from the 90s. Like we show up at the party and we're like, the people from the 90s.
That's kind of our vibe still. We sound like we're from the 90s. Wow, a hawk just landed in the tree outside my house. That is auspicious. And its tail is doing a little wiggy wag.
Man, I'm like, what if I'm looking outside to see if one lands in my tree.
I hope so. That would be beyond double whammy auspicious. Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions. I know you don't have a lot of time. And all of them kind of relate to the book, obviously, because they just do. But one of the ones I was so curious about is what what you feel about feminism has been normalized since the 80s, or do you think anything has changed? And it's kind of a three-part question, I guess. And what are your current feelings about the state of feminism today?
I mean, I don't know that much about the state of feminism today just because I'm only one person and I can't be in like multiple locations at multiple times. I can say that, you know, what a big moment for me was, I think 10 years ago when Beyonce did a concert and had a light up sign that said feminist behind her. And, it was really odd because I think I was promoting something at the time and people were asking me what I felt about it as if I was going to say, oh, well, Beyonce's not allowed to do that. I'm a feminist police officer.
Right.
Like, I think feminism should be in the mainstream, especially, with what's going on with Roe v. Wade, which doesn't just have to do with women's bodies. It's anyone who can get pregnant. And also, it's just a larger issue of healthcare in general, because a lot of people have been denied access to healthcare this whole time, not just stuff that has to do with reproductive rights. But I feel like every time a pop star talks about feminism, that is the sound of a bunch of kids typing feminism into the search engine. And I think it's great. So there's been a lot of talk of like, oh, too commercialized or whatever. And it's like, I feel like stuff needs to function on all different levels so it's accessible to all different people. I feel like there's part of it that is signing petitions. There's part of it that is starting groups. There's part of it that is being in the government. There is part of it that is holding a sign. There's part of it that's internet activism. There's part of it that's being a musician or an artist that talks about feminism and its connection to the wider world within your art. I think there's all different kinds of ways to do things. And I think that confining it or making it elitist in any way is to its detriment, because I didn't grow up, like I grew up moving around the suburbs of like Maryland for most of my life. And like I lived 5 miles away from where Minor Threat and Rites of Spring started and had no idea that was even happening, because I went to public school and listened to like Leonard Skinner and Molly Hatchet, because that's what my sister listened to. So I wasn't cool and I didn't have access to punk. And like I found that on TV. I found it on Night Flight. And to me, one of the first punk things I saw was actually David Bowie's I Am a DJ video on Don Kirshner's rock concert. And it was punk because it was so gay. And I hadn't seen anything gay on TV besides, men making fun of gay men.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wait, what? And like my mom's friends. And so I was like, and that felt like this big punk moment, or seeing Talking Heads on SNL.
Yeah.
And being like, what the, stuff
Yeah.
like that, like really seeing Liquid Sky on Night Flight, just, and having access to that stuff is really important. And having any kind of feminism or feminist punk or what have you, like be in the mainstream, I think is really important. It's not necessarily my gig,
Right.
like that's not, I never wanted to be like a pop star or something like that, but other people who want to do that, I think it's great. And I think that younger people have created such great language that I get to use. Like we didn't have mansplaining in the 90s, and now we have the phrase mansplaining. Thank you, younger people. Like what a time waster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like our time saver. Like I can just say somebody mansplained to me. I don't have to like have all these feelings about it. I can just be like, that person mansplained to me and walk away.
Right.
So like there's all of this language that younger people and language about being more intersectional than I was when I was in my 20s that really takes white feminism to task, that I really, really appreciate. And so I feel really hopeful. I feel almost like nervous that I put too much, and that a lot of people are putting a lot of pressure on younger people to, be the forward thinkers of tomorrow. But I think there's so much cool style. There's so much cool creativity that's happening amongst like 20-year-olds nowadays. And you see it all over TikTok. And you also see older people being really creative on TikTok. Like I think TikTok's great, and I'm really happy that people are monetizing it, so they're just not creating content for free all the time,
Mhm.
because this is paid work. This is, like, creative stuff that is, like, affecting people's real lives in usually very positive ways. So,
Yeah.
I like TikTok feminism. I like TikTok that deals with important issues like racism and classism and
Mhm.
transphobia, like, that's something great that I see happening on social media that makes me feel like it's being taken into the future.
Yeah. Beautiful. What is an internal positive belief that has stayed with you since childhood that you still draw upon?
I guess just I always knew I wanted to be an artist, like any kind of artist, like whether it was like dance, which I thought I would go into, which like I just am not that good of a dancer. Or like, I just always knew I wanted to go into some kind of like architecture or, the fact that I ended up in singing makes total sense just because singing was sort of the safe space that I went to when things were not great in my house. I
Mm.
always had this kind of imaginary location that could be anywhere. Like I would ride my bike a lot. I would sing when I rode my bike. I would take walks. I would sing when I walked. And I didn't really sing in my house unless nobody was home. But it was like I could find some kind of place to sing. So it was always like, almost like I'm trying to like, sneak a beer. It was like I was trying to like find a place somewhere where I could sing. I was always trying to find a place to sing. So it makes sense that that's the art form that I went into is like music, but I'm still kind of shocked because I feel like, I really like architecture.
Well, off that and on creativity, would you say for you that writing songs is comparable to writing a book and or photography, visual art, or are they like totally different creative expressions for you?
That's a really that's really hard. I want you to answer your answer first so I can steal it.
Oh, uh,
Like, do you feel like they're different? Because you do a lot of different art
I
forms.
do a lot of different yes, and I think it depends on what for me producing is different than writing a song to some extent, producing a show, a creative show. It's a different hat. Yeah. Um and writing a song versus writing a poem, I think they live around the same area, but when I take a picture, it's more um an instant it's almost like it's that capturing a moment where there's 0 words. It's just the translation of something beautiful that touches me like a poem. So they're related, but I feel like it's nuanced for different creative things for me.
I mean, I definitely feel like the poem lyric thing is interesting because sometimes it's like you can write poems that then you pull on to use in your lyrics.
Right.
But you have to like change them around to like make sense with the structure. But I think the similarity that I see with songwriting and writing a book is for me the editing process because the way that I write songs now is because I'm currently writing an album and I do make them up lyrics, like just like I have some music or like I like play with my friends and then I tape something and then I'll like loop it and then I'll just like sing over it. And I can sing like 50,000 different things because of modern technology. Um, you know, as since we're from the 90s, we're also from the Tascam 4-track cassette
Mhm.
generation where we only had 4 tracks. So I'm
Right.
still like, I have infinite computer tracks,
Yeah.
which can be a curse if you just go on too long, but
Yeah.
so I'll sing like, 50 different ideas and then I just like shut it down, save it, hopefully save it first, then shut it down. Then I walk away and I go like work on something else. And then I come back like a week or 2 weeks later and I listen to everything and I know exactly what's supposed to be there. I'm
Mhm.
like, that sucks, that sucks, that sucks. And I just start editing. And I found something really similar with the book was that the taking time away was the most important way to get it done. That
Mm.
space in between working is just as important as getting your butt in the chair and writing. So I
Mm.
would get my butt in the chair and write for months. And then I would just go away for months, not even look at it. And when I came back, I was like, oh my God, it was just glaringly obvious. And it actually saved me so much time. And I got to be in a band that was touring and do other stuff.
Right.
And then come back and kind of have a fresh viewpoint to it. So I found the editing very, very similar, and the taking and the learning, since I'm older now, knowing that it's not good to just be single-minded when you're making art, and like you have to take breaks and like go do something else that is like filling you and sustaining. And that's not actually antithetical to the work. It's feeding them.
Exactly. Well, I'm so glad that you said that about editing, because I feel the same way. It's almost like, if you kind of puke out a whole 2 pages, for me, it's almost like I can see the areas highlighted that stay. And when you come back to it, it's almost like you just immediately know, oh, all this is trash, but there's these highlighted sections that are the thing.
Yeah.
And that's so exciting. Like, to me, the editing process is so usually the most exciting, because it finally sticks, like it finally makes sense. And you're right.
It's also
taking
kind
time.
of like I think those are the 2 different hats for me, is like the spewing part, where it's like, and that is also a really fun, I mean, for me, because the book was very personal and a lot of trauma came out in it, it could often be really difficult. And I like would have to stop and like do a bunch of therapy. And like, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm walking around my house, like I have some weird mask on, like I can't talk to anybody. Like I'm, my son asked me a simple question and I'm like, don't know how to answer it. Like, I was like, sometimes I just had to get away from it for that reason. But I did enjoy the blank page. Like, I've never been somebody who's like, oh shit, it's a blank page, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm so thrilled by the blank page, because I'm like, there's ultimate and, so many possibilities. And I would just start writing and working, and sometimes it would get hard and I'd have to take a couple of days off. But like, that part was really exciting. And then the editing part was so different, because it was like kind of the subjective and then the objective. Not like there is any objectivity, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it was like I had to put on my outsider hat. Like, I'm a character, not a real person, and be like, what of this is valuable and what is not valuable. And like exactly like you said, it's like, it's almost like the stuff that was good just glowed.
Right. Oh, that was a really wonderful explanation of the process. Thank you so much.
I love talking process. I love it.
That was inspiring. And it resonated with me. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like, and maybe it's in the past, maybe it's now, and that's what the question is about. It seems like the energy of anger has been a positive motivation for you throughout your creativity. Would you say that's true? And is that sort of what motivates you now, or is that totally false?
Yeah, I think anger can be so many things. Like, a lot of times it's something that points me in the direction of something that needs to be dealt with. Like, if I'm angry, I have a tendency to go from anger to, like, if I'm angry at somebody in particular or something, like, I can go from anger to feeling sorry for them really quickly, instead of staying in the anger and just being like, what does this mean about me? You know what I mean? Or like, because it's all about me.
Right.
It's all about me. No, but like, it can be like a mile marker or a milepost or a sign that says, here's something you need to think about. Here's something you need to deal with. Sometimes the anger can be oversized. And so I'm like, why is it so oversized? What is behind this being oversized? And then I find, oh, it's reminding me of this other situation that I never cried about and I never got mad about and I never felt, 10 years ago, which is why, now I'm 55 trying to be in my feelings at the time, because I don't want to be 70 and being triggered to something that happened yesterday, like, I'd like to deal with things promptly as they happen.
Yeah.
But so I think there's a lot. I think being curious about anger as opposed to being afraid of it, like, has been really helpful to me. Like, being like, oh, what is this about? Instead of like, yikes, I'm a bad person for being angry, you know? Uh, but also it's motivating. I mean, definitely like I can't shake watching Amy Barrett Cohen get, put into the Supreme Court, like, and they were having like a pro-life thing on the White House lawn, like the same day or the day after or something. And I was like, I just, the whole Supreme Court thing pisses me off to such a crazy extent. I can't even almost talk about it because like I will become a cartoon character with steam coming out of my ears. And like, you know, that anger makes me want to get on stage and shake it out of my body because that anger lives inside of me every single day. And when I'm on stage and I'm able to like physically process that anger in front of people, it's incredibly healing. And, for a long time, I haven't talked about this stuff because there's all of these stereotypes about feminist or female performers, like however you want to identify, and like that we just spew, we just rant. Our work is just therapy. It's not real, it's fake, or it comes straight from emotion and there's no editing, or there's no strategery. There's no strategery behind it.
I like that.
But, so, but now I really do not give a fuck. And so I'm kind of like, yeah, you know what? It is therapeutic. And it's actually more therapeutic now than it ever has been. Like sometimes I get off stage and I literally feel like I just did EMDR.
Right.
Like I feel lighter. I feel like I left something back on that stage. And it's not just, and I'm not angry at the audience. And I feel like by displaying my anger in front of an audience and by having them take part in it, it's almost like we're all kind of going through this thing together and we're all kind of celebrating that it's normal to be angry in these times where everyone's rights are being diminished and we're headed towards a totalitarian state. Like what else are we supposed to do? And we can dance with anger, but still love each other.
Yeah, well, I mean, even hearing you talk about it, it seems like, and maybe this is, from early childhood even, that eventually over time you found a way to transform and transmute anger into creativity. I think some forms of anger can shut you down. It like eats you, like you said, it lives inside you and it can consume you so much that you can't be creative. Sometimes if I'm really angry, I can't do anything creative. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like white heat, right? But the ability to transmute that into something positive and shake it off on stage, I think that in many ways is a huge part of the transformative nature of art and creativity. Is it does take things that are negative in your life and make beauty from them, sorrow, anger, all these negative emotions, jealousy. You can write a great song that helps you just shake that off in a sense. And certainly when you perform it, you get to kind of reanimate that angst and that, the part that made you kind of crazy with that feeling, but it also helps you shake it off. And it sounds like you're living in that part of it. You found a way to do that, and it's a really positive message, I think, because I know, the youth today, they got plenty to be angry about. And my hope, my personal hope is that they find that same sort of unlock to where it can be transposed into something quite phenomenal for the world to ingest, for their peers to feel inspired by and not just stay in this kind of like, fuck this, and then become depressed. Because I think the depression, anger can turn on you and become very dark internally and really hurt you and cause disease and all of that. So, art, and I feel like artists often are the ones who can take these negative emotions, and we're all creatives. I really believe that when I say artists, it's not from a sort of pretentious place of like, oh, only artists can, it's like we're all creatives. We all have the ability. We're creating every day by being alive. We are creating our reality. We're creating the future of what we want to be and say and do in the world. So
creating slang with your friends.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
you're inventing new words. Some of the words you make up with your friends might end up in the dictionary. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I totally, the thing about getting so angry or depressed, like I stopped writing at all during COVID. And the whole part of the Trump era was horrible and it still is. And I don't really want to go there because it's just like, you don't get to take up my airspace. But I think it's also important to acknowledge that as artists, we do fall into the pit holes of, maybe like smoking cigarettes and eating pizza and having a cigarette butt in the pizza crust next to the bed, and the whole room becomes a total mess, and like we feel like we can't do anything, and that like that just kind of spreading the word that a lot of kids were spreading like during COVID, like it's okay not to be okay. And sometimes we're not okay. And sometimes we can't, make lemonade out of lemons. Like sometimes it's just fucked. And you type fuck everyone into the computer search engine for no reason. And you're like, why am I doing that? Like,
Right.
like it just happens. I mean, I do feel like through writing this book, by taking a lot of really painful things and turning them into narratives that I was allowed, and I allowed myself to be funny when I wanted to be about them, because that's how I grapple with stuff in my everyday life, is through humor. And by doing that, it's like I took all this shit like that I needed to kind of process, and I put it out there in a book, and then you know I made money on it. I'm making money off this. I know that sounds crass, but I don't give a shit. It's like I got paid in advance to write this stuff down. I'm going to get paid some money when the book finally comes out on May 14th. And it's like, fuck you, assholes. Like all the sound men who like threatened to shock me on the mic, who told me they were going to turn my vocals all the way down, who like wouldn't set up my monitor unless they told me if I said I was single or married. Guess what? I just turned all the twisted shit you did to me into something that I think is really beautiful and an interesting read. And I made money off it. So who won that? You know what I mean? It's like, and it's the same way with songs. Like, you know, okay, so I'm pissed off. What am I going to do? I'm going to write a song and then I'm going to get up on stage and perform it. And then, at the end of the week, I'm going to get a bunch of t-shirt money and like whatever, money is left after, the club completely rips you off. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm
Yeah.
going to get up and perform this in front of a bunch of people and they're going to applaud. So like, who won that one? You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, say whatever fucked up shit you want to me. I'll just turn it into a song and like move on with my merry life.
Yes. I love it. And you touched upon something, around addiction and art and, um, you know, uh, sort of like the turning in of negative emotions and feelings into something that is more along self-harm and you've had your troubles between addiction, but also, health problems with Lyme's and all of that. What do you do now for self-care, like while you're touring, or do you have a spiritual practice? Like, is there something that you kind of take refuge in that is about self-reliance and self-care over self-harm? And obviously, I'm assuming, like you said, nobody's perfect and we all have our moments. But as with the wisdom of years in this being a rock and roller, so to speak, or a punk rocker, what have you held on to that you turn to for self-care on the road or in
Yoga.
general? Okay.
I mean, just like a simple, like kind of beginners, like 20-minute yoga thing with Rodney Yee. Love
Nice.
Yee. Um, that I try to do it every day. I broke a rib roller skating. So I have not been able to do yoga for like 2 weeks or 10 days, however long it's been. But yeah, yoga. My meditation is very spotty. I love taking my dog to the dog park as self-care. I love going on hikes with my friend Dusty, which I never thought I would say because I lived in New York for like over 20 years. And I was like, oh my God, people in LA like work when they're trying to relax. Like their relaxing is like hiking. I don't want to hike. And now I hike. So never say never.
Right.
One of the things that comes up actually in the book is that I don't know how to fucking relax. Like,
Mm.
I don't know how to make friends. I don't know how to relax. Like, relaxing and just hanging out are terrifying spaces for me because
Mhm.
I was used to being kind of in my house in constant crisis or like hiding from someone or, you know, my first art making practice was building houses for my Barbies in the attic so that I could hide from my dad. And it, it is really interesting to me now that I've been talking about the book a lot to start recognizing that like part of my art making practice came specifically in opposition to a bad dynamic in my family and to hiding,
Mm.
which hiding isn't necessarily like the best self-care, but it's a decision and it's an
Mhm.
action, and I think those spaces have become really sacred to me. And now I need to change them from spaces where I'm hiding
Mm.
to spaces where I feel like I'm being seen by myself.
Right.
Uh, and just that kind of mind shift
Mm.
is really helpful. But I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, no, actually, you did more than answer my question. You actually illuminated something for me in a positive way of like what connects that that part between, that there's like just a little connection between art and transmuting negative emotions or addiction and self-care. It's all lives really close together. And, by identifying hiding, like sort of like I always like the idea of like, okay, if I'm doing something, that I don't feel is really like my true nature or good for me, it's always in a hiding kind of way, right? And I've tried to look at that a lot, but by the way you said that, it sort of did a little unlock for me. So I appreciate that. It was like extra. I was like, oh, that makes
So
sense. Like
you lay in bed watching Netflix, watching Girls Five Eva, like the whole season. Is that what you're telling me? That's what I
Not
did.
so much that, but sometimes, yes, I'll just disappear in a room and watch something and that feels like, well, this is not, I'm here to do a lot of things and this is clearly not one of them,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But, everyone needs a break too, and that's okay. And I don't know, I feel a lot of resonance with what you're saying about, in general, what you were talking about not, um,
Knowing how to
Be
relax.
yes. Like, just
Always have to
doing
have a project.
yes,
Really? You
always.
understand that? I think you do.
Flitting about a million and one projects and never kind of, like, resting, and having that being able to be social if I need to be, but never feeling like I can be present totally with one person in a social scene. I'm sort of like, "Okay, cool, yeah. Okay, okay, good. Okay, good." Like, I can't just be like, "I'm here in the moment, and I'm gonna talk to this person for 7 whole minutes and listen to them and have them listen to me," because I always feel like there's something I could be doing over there. I could help put away those dishes. I could d like, I don't have that calm in I'm always, like, wanting to keep going, like, "Let's go, let's go." And some of that, it can be positive, but the awareness that it's happening is what I'm kind of dealing with now, trying to notice, "Wow, you
Wait,
really can't sit still." You
have
know?
you always been on the West Coast? Because you seem so East Coast to me with your
No, I was in New York. Yeah, I was in New York before, here. I moved here in 2010, though.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived on the East Coast for the majority of my life, and then I moved back to the West Coast in high school, and I was like, I mean, I was a big pot smoker and stuff, but I still was like always trying to make things happen. And I was like, what's wrong with you guys? It's not like we're like, care about the stock market and the stock market's happening back there and it's already done in New York. So we can just laze around like,
Right.
come on, let's make it happen. Like, and everybody was just like sitting around smoking weed, talking about bands they were going to start. And I was like, no, let's go start one.
Exactly.
Hard.
Exactly. Yeah, I really like manifesting. Like, if the idea comes, I'm like, "Okay, now let's make it." Like,
Yeah.
I'm not just an idea guy, really. If anything, that's just the spark that leads to the entire mega show in my mind, you know what I mean?
That's my
So
guilty pleasure is like writing TV shows that never happen and like having that be okay. It's like, you know what I mean? Like even in my relaxing time, I'm like, let's have a pitch meeting about fake TV shows. Like, how is that relaxing? But it is. And I love Rummy Cube, and kicking my husband's ass relentlessly.
Right.
And my friend Dusty comes over a lot and we do that. And like, that's kind of like, that's been my easing into being someone who can just hang out without, let's start a basketball team. Let's start a magazine. Let's start a band, you know? Like I was always like doing stuff like that to try to make friends. And then I have to like make friends through action. Like,
yeah.
I like to do stuff with people.
Me
you know
too.
what I mean? Like,
same way. Exactly.
sitting there talking, I just start getting like,
yeah, it makes me uncomfortable. It makes me feel like all that energy is not going anywhere. It has to go into something then. Do you know what I mean?
And also, I don't want to, if we're like doing stuff and we're just sort of like talking, I feel like it's like, you know, actually, maybe part of it is positive, especially with like that me and Dusty hiking with our dogs. Like, it's not really hiking. It's like we go to this one park and it's all paved. So it's like, you know, but it's like got a great view of the city. It's so beautiful. I love California, by the way. I love it.
Me too.
Love it.
Love it.
I love all the garden stuff. Like everyone's like, don't you miss New York? And I was like, oh yeah, I miss the smell of male urine everywhere I go. I miss guys bumping into me and being like, bitch. Like, fuck that, man. I want to be in my fucking car. I love being in my car, listening to like Lana Del Rey really loud, getting stuck in traffic, singing along by myself. It's awesome.
Yeah,
I
I love
every
LA.
time I get stuck in traffic, I'm like, this is fine. Fine with this. This is good. Like,
I'm so glad to hear that. I love LA too. When I came in 2010, I was like, whoa, there's something in the water here. I'm staying. I just came to visit and I just haven't left. And I still feel so strongly about I'm in the right place. And I thought New York was so cool. I lived there for basically 10 years. And when I came here, I was like, oh, there's space. I can breathe. I'm calm. My nervous system is calming down. Like I didn't realize how jacked up New York had me, you know, and how difficult it was to be in music there and taxis. And how do you get the, oh God, the difference was like space and nature. And I've been so privileged to have that here. You know what I mean? Like I'm very aware of that too. And
you don't want to spend $85 to Uber to the practice space that costs like $1,000 a minute.
Exactly. No, I don't. Rather do it in the garage.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm nearly done because I know you've already given me more time. I had one question about advice for young women today, if that's something you might have. No pressure. No pressure.
No, I did a whole interview last week and it was like all based on, it was like a whole article of like stuff you would tell your younger self. And I wrote stuff down, but of course I don't have it out, but I'm like, what did I say that was
good?
I mean, I guess, you know, my favorite, I love giving advice, so don't let me go off because I will totally go off. One of the things I always say to younger people is like, if you have a friend who you feel bad around more than like once, like, or twice, like when you hang out with that person, you just feel kind of off afterwards, or you feel like weird. Like, think about it. Is this a toxic friendship? Is this something is this a person you need to have in your life? Are they just in your life because they chose you, or did you choose them? And do you still choose them? It's okay to not be friends with everybody. It's okay to not date everybody who wants to date you. And if you have toxic people in your life, you need to get them out ASAP, because there's people who are your people who are standing behind those toxic people, waiting for the opportunity to be in your life. And those toxic people are taking up their fucking space. So get them out. And the world is not going to crumble if you break up with a friend, even if it's a friend of 10 years, even if it's a friend of a year that you spent every day with. If it's over, it's over. Get rid of them. I know that sounds horrible. I'm not saying, you know, you can also like end it slowly, however you want to do it. But you need to break up with friends who are toxic. You need to break up with anybody who's toxic in your life. And sometimes it's a family member. And the sooner you can do that and be on the other side, the sooner you can keep doing that. And then you all of a sudden look around one day and someone says something horrible to you that you don't know and you don't even understand what they're saying, because everyone in your life is so supportive and awesome that you don't even remember what like sexism or whatever kind of shit you have to go through in your life. You don't even remember what that is, because I mean, you do because you have to, but you know what I mean? It's like
Right.
some asshole will say something to you belittling you and you'll just be like, what? You don't even understand, because that's not how your friends and the people in your life treat you. So it becomes like you're living in the alternative reality you always wanted. And it's not going to happen if you keep people who you don't want in your life. So
Woo!
kick them out. Get them out.
Yes.
Get them out now.
Okay, quick question. I don't know if the answer, but I always ask everyone, how did music find you? And in your case, I feel like you shared a lot in the book, but I guess what I'm looking for is that first time you heard of anything musical that you went, that's it. And it doesn't have to be a long answer. I know you've got very limited time. How did music find you?
I actually don't, because my next thing got canceled.
Oh, let's party. How did music find you?
I mean, I think the first time that I was like, oh my God about something was Rockin' Robin by the Jackson 5. We used to have this slap game, you know, where we go tweedly 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 tweedly, and then rocked in the treetop all day long. And it was a 4-person one, like on the playground. And I loved that song and I loved singing it. And then I had like I don't remember if I had a 45 or if it was on the album, but when we had it in our house and I could like listen to it, it was just Michael Jackson's voice was like a big, I want to do that moment. You know, like just the quality, the emotion that came through when he was even singing songs about a rockin' robin. There was still this like really intense emotion underneath it that I think I really related to. And then also, I just love that high pitched pop voice so much. Like I really related to Frankie Lyman, to like Diana Ross, like Upside Down, that song. Like,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of the male pop stars from when I was young, like Tony DeFranco, Donny Osmond, like those kind of people. Tony DeFranco is very obscure, but was very big in my house. So I think a lot of the kind of high pitched singers I really liked because I was a kid and I had a high pitched voice and I still can sing kind of squirrely sometimes. So, yeah, Rockin' Robin by Jackson
Okay.
5 really did it for me.
Woo!
She over the musical edge.
Thank you. That's great. I love it. Okay, our favorite part, your launched artist, as we call it, Naz Riahi. Do you want to share a little bit about her? Do you want to say something? We're going to have her hop on at the end of this episode, and I'm going to
Yes.
chat with her. But I'd love to hear why you chose her why you tipped your hat to Naz Riahi.
Well, Naz is a great writer, a great filmmaker, and she's also a connector. Like she's somebody who's like super, super creative in her own right. But I feel like she's spent a lot of time, like she introduced me. I've never had a manager, like a proper manager before. And she introduced me to her friend Uli and was like, I think Uli would be perfect for you. I think you should meet. And now I've been working with Uli for a year and a half. And
Amazing.
I couldn't be happier. Like I'm going to get on the phone with her after this and like, you know, probably just chit chat. And also we're working on this event that's like totally falling apart. So, we're both like super mad and laughing about it at the same time. But whenever I'm with her, the way that she tells a story, it's like when you meet her, you'll see.
I know
Like,
her.
oh, you
Yeah,
did? I didn't know you knew her.
Yeah, she's incredible human being.
Yeah.
I agree
She
with
can
you
tell a
completely.
story like nobody else. And like, she's the person you want at every party. She's the person who like, you're sitting around dinner and it's like people are transfixed on Naz. And she will just say, she can do voices. You know, she'll talk about growing up. She'll talk about something that happened in the grocery store. She can talk about anything and it's absolutely amazing. And so she's working on bringing that into like the creative forward through her filmmaking and her writing. And I'm just really excited for her work to get wider known. And she wrote this really beautiful article in Harper's Bazaar a couple years ago, and it talked about growing up in Iran, and then about, you know, the revolution that was happening, women-led revolution in Iran, and what it felt like to be someone, an Iranian living in the US, watching that. And it was really, really remarkable. But there was this special, this piece in it that I was like, was so prophetic and to what's happening right now. She was like, you know, watch out. Cause, you know, people reading this article kind of might be thinking like, oh, well, that's Iran, like whatever. She's like, totalitarianism is coming for us, for all of us. She's like, as, you know, Roe v. Wade is, you know, being thrown in the dumpster, like they're coming for trans bodies, they're coming for BIPOC people, they're coming for anyone who can get pregnant, they're coming for women, they're, you know, watch out. This is the way that it's heading. It's not just in other places. And I reread it a few days ago, and I was like, what a remarkable paragraph that was. Because I do think that a lot of us are really terrified about what's happening. And I think that people like Naz bring a lot of joy to the conversation, that we can have these tough conversations about fear and about identity, and they don't have to be joyless and sad. They also don't have to be like, you know, jazz hands the whole time.
Right.
But that we can have these conversations like with our friends and in public, and not be the what do you call that? I don't even remember what it's called. Joy kill, buzz
Debbie
kill.
Downer.
Debbie Downer. That's what we say in our house, but I feel like most people say like feminist joy, killjoy, killjoy, killjoy.
Killjoy, yeah.
I pride myself on being the killjoy. I want to be the biggest bummer at the party. I want to be the people that people are like backing away from me. I think Naz is just a wonderful person and an amazing artist. So I want to launch.
Yay. Well, and I will say, this conversation has been so enlightening and joyful. So your whole killjoy plan didn't work here. Sorry.
Well, invite me to a party sometime and you'll see. Okay.
You're invited. You have carte blanche invitation, and I will keep an eye out. Did you just chortle? That's exciting.
It's how I snort.
I do too sometimes. When I get really going, I go full chortle. It's lovely. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's when you hear yourself back though on a video or something, and you're like, okay, I laugh like a witch, and then I snort at the end. It's like, whatever. I know why my kid is like, Mom. He's like, Corinne.
What a pleasure it's been to talk to you, Kathleen Hanna, and all the good things to you and a Rebel Girl. I'm going to hold it up because I just love it so much. Yeah. Look at all the tabs I put on it because of how much I was checking it out. I was also checking for early typos because I'm that kind of nerd, because I got the
There are a bunch of typos in
I got the advanced copy.
I'll have to send you
these are all the typos.
It's so beautiful. The hardback. It's so beautiful.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to go out and buy it. Naz Riahi, welcome to LaunchLeft podcast.
Rain Phoenix, thanks for having me.
Well, as you know, Ms. Kathleen Hanna launched you on the show, so we're so glad you could join today. And she gushed about you and how you would be the person she would invite to any party because you're always so magnetizing and people want to talk to you. What kind of things do you have to share about your time working with her on Rebel Girl, if anything, which I imagine you do?
That's so nice of her. I was so sad to miss actually having the conversation with her and you on the podcast. I was so looking forward to it, and then I got so sick that day. Oh my God, Kathleen, I just actually posted about this when she asked me, asked me to help edit her memoir. She's such an icon, and I have loved her music, her activism, her feminism for so long that I was really trepidatious because I love music and I read so many rock memoirs, and a lot of them are just not that good. Whether they're written by the person or they're ghostwritten, it just seems like they don't reveal very much. And some of them are like, I went and played this show, and then we played this show, and then we played this show. And I really want that vulnerability when I read someone's memoir, but also kind of like the inside story. That's why you're reading it. And so I was really nervous. And I know Kathleen and I'm friends with her. And I was nervous that I would say yes, and then it would be a disappointment. But I don't think I could have said no, because who says no to Kathleen Hanna asking to collaborate on something? So out of curiosity, and because it's Kathleen, I said yes. And then literally from the first sentence, I was hooked. She's such a great writer, which was also, I mean, I knew her as a great artist and a great songwriter, but prose is different. And she really sticks to her voice as a person, and she knows how to convey that on paper. So I just was giddy the whole time I was working on that book with her. And she was a really great person to collaborate with and edit, because she doesn't have any ego. She wants it to be the best that it can be. And she doesn't take anything personally. She really wants you to be totally frank and direct and go to the places that some people find uncomfortable. And she was a delight throughout the whole process.
Wow. I can see how that is very true just from our conversation. She is really direct but fun, and brings this element of joy to answering any question, and curiosity. And yeah, she was asking me questions. I was so impressed with how she was just so curious, and her story feels like I'm a huge fan myself, and I shared that about it. But reading this book, it really was such a window into her as a person, and her struggles and her life, and her incredible trajectory as an artist. You got to work with her on it. Sounds like she was very collaborative, but had a very strong voice. What about the experience influenced your work, if anything, and or inspired you now as a writer?
Her entire career is deeply inspiring to me. I mean, I think the thing that I didn't know about her is that she has a visual arts background. And I always knew that zines were part of the 90s and they were part of Riot Girl, but like the fact that she was such a prolific zine maker, and that the impact of that art even today is palpable, right? And so I was really blown away by her as an artist, and not just as a musician, and not just as an activist. And also, it was really interesting to talk to someone with a celebrity of that magnitude, because the people who were obsessed with her and her music were deeply obsessed with her and her music, and kind of the pressure that puts on someone. Um, I think unless you live that life or have like a very close glimpse into it, it's unfathomable, because in a way, someone who represents something like feminism, like Riot Girl feminism, whether she wants to or not, um, is enshrouded in so much responsibility that they didn't necessarily take on. And they, can't, there's so much that they can do wrong and so little that they can do right. And I mean, she does all of it with so much grace and so much humor, and it's nothing that she ever complains about. But I was really moved by that. That was something I hadn't thought about. And in terms of affecting my work, I generally don't edit for a living. I've edited issues of magazines here and there, and occasionally I help friends out by looking at their work. But I'm mostly just a writer and a filmmaker, and I don't make my money editing. And so this was the first time I had taken on a book. And I didn't know what that process would be like for me, how much it would take away from my own creative process, or whether I would even be a great editor or not. And so that was really interesting because it kind of opened up something I hadn't expected to be interested in or to do. And that was a delightful surprise. I think anytime your life grows in a way you hadn't expected it to grow, it's always wonderful.
Oh, that's a great answer. So I assume now that that's something that you are interested in pursuing, and that through the process of working with her, you realized that? That's huge.
Well, it's funny because yes and no. Like I don't I think when you're a writer, I don't know if you have this experience as a musician, and also as an actor, but when you're a writer, it's really actually hard to have a career as an editor because for me, it takes away my energy to write. And so I still wouldn't necessarily think that that was something that I'm going to actually pursue as a career opportunity. But it definitely, if someone else like Kathleen comes to me, I would 100% do it.
You're right.
Yeah.
Now, you shared that you have a real passion for music always. What was the first band that really got you? Like, how did music find you?
Oh, well, I grew up in Iran in the 80s. I was a little kid, and that was right after the revolution. And so all music was banned in Iran except for classical Iranian music, and especially Western music. So I came to music through cassette tapes on the black market that my older brother had and my like cool older friend had. And also the music that my dad had from before the revolution that he listened to. So the music that we had at home was a lot of Iranian music, but then also a lot of like Simon and Garfunkel and Tanya Tucker. And my dad loved, there was an Iranian singer who had done a cover of Jolene. And so Jolene is kind of the thing that I remember from my childhood always being on. And then right before I immigrated here, I was 8 years old, and my best friend pulled me into her room and was like, I have to show you something. And she pulled out a cassette from her drawer and put it in and pressed play. And it was Michael Jackson's Thriller album.
Yes.
So I became completely obsessed with Michael. And I thought he was so cool. And I just did a performance about this at MoCA a few months ago, actually almost a year ago now. But I thought Michael was the coolest. And I was so scared to leave Iran and come here. I didn't speak any English. I didn't have any friends. I didn't want to leave. We had to leave. And I thought, okay, if I know about Michael, then I'm going to, like, the kids are going to like me. But then I got here in the 90s. And by then, Michael wasn't cool anymore. He was kind of the butt of jokes. And so I was like armed with like this thing that I had that I thought was the coolest thing ever. And then it was just another thing for the kids to make fun of me for.
Oh, man.
I know. But then I grew up in Seattle during grunge. So like all of those bands, like obviously Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, like really grew up with a lot of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're from the 90s too.
Yeah.
So tell us, what is next for you? What are you passionate about? Do you have any projects you're really excited about? Are you writing a book? Are you making a movie? I know you do a lot of things.
Too. So I am really excited about my first book is actually coming out a year from now, May 2025.
Ooh.
It's a short story collection called Vibrations. And I'm, just being who I am, as soon as I found out that that book was coming out, I was like, I hope I live long enough to see it out. Like immediately, my first thought is, you and I talk a little bit about this.
Yeah.
It's like, I hope I don't die in the next year and a half.
Impermanence.
Yeah. So Vibrations is coming out, and then I'm working on another book that I'm almost done with, and I'm have my first feature is in kind of, I guess, technically in pre-production. I have a producer attached, and we're out to cast, and those are kind of the things I'm working on. I'm getting a little antsy because I really want to make another film. But I thought the next film I would make would be a feature. And so I haven't worked on the idea even of making another short film. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I might just have to make a little short film before that film ever makes it, into production. And then one other thing I want to mention, because it's music related, is, did I send you the short doc that Silas and I made about
No.
Madeline von Ritz?
No, please do.
Okay, I'm going to send this to you. We're going to put it out with a password because we're not actually publicly distributing it, because it's about an 86-year-old musician. It's called Madeline von Ritz is Almost Famous. And her whole life, she's almost made it and she hasn't given up. And she's turning 86 this month. So we're going to sort of start sharing that with friends and family, in hopes that she'll get people to know her. I mean, her music has been around since the 60s. There's some EPs that she recorded under the name Lynn Castle. She's kind of this amazing, magical, sort of resilient, spunky human being, and she deserves all the attention in the world. So yeah.
Love that. Send it to me for sure.
Yeah, I will. I'll send it to you.
Well, can we find you anywhere on the internet? Any of your past things that you want to share about that we can find? Or do we just Google Naz Riahi and fingers crossed things will pop up?
Lots of things. I've published a lot of essays and stories, so you'll find all of those. And on social media, I'm mostly just on Instagram at Naz Riahi. But yeah, my films most of them are online, and yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing a little bit about your process and work and your time with Kathleen. I'm so happy we finally got to do this, and yeah, it's exciting.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
LaunchLeft aims to create an intentional space that highlights and empowers all artists for whom radical creativity is not a choice, but a necessity. LaunchLeft begins with music, but its ultimate aim is to launch left-of-center artists in all creative fields.